Hey guys, I've got one of these ZOHD Altus planes here, which is the latest model from ZOHD in this kind of fairly popular configuration at the moment of twin motor and a V-tail. I'll probably compare it a little bit to my Swordfish throughout this, just because yeah, it's got that kind of similar design, although it is a smaller wingspan. This is just under 1 meter wingspan, whereas the Swordfish was 1.2 meters. So I'll just go through my setup. I'll let you know what I like and dislike about this from a kind of setup and design point of view, and then we'll go to some flight footage. So there are quite a few things to like about this model, as there are with most of the ZOHDs. The electronics and everything feels pretty good quality. The motors feel nice. The nacelles are really big and beefy and have got good air intakes and exhausts at the back there. You've got these metal gear servos all round, and I really like the low profile install with the horn coming up through the wing from the underside. And then yeah, the low profile horn, which if I flip this over, you'll see on the other side it's actually, there's a carbon fiber spar that runs through it, is connected to it, so that gives it a good bit of strength. The foam feels pretty good. It's EPP, and I think it feels stronger than the previous ZOHD models I used to have. I know they used to use the biodegradable foam. I don't know if maybe they've moved away from that, but they'd call it EPP now, and it does feel like thicker and stronger, so that could be a nice improvement they've made there. You can see they've got these magnetic hatches, one for the battery bay and one for the electronics, which is just really nice, easy access. I've never had an issue with them coming off in flight, and I much prefer it to, you know, using these thumb screws that just kind of waste a bit of your time. And yeah, they just snap in place like that. I also like that they've thought out the electronics install a little bit. So you've got a spot for your GPS here. That just pops off there, that little lid, and you can put your GPS in with the spot for your cable to go through. If we turn it back over again, you can see they have these kind of electronics bays here, so you can put your VTX or your receiver on the wing. If I go to the other side, I have used this one for my receiver, and then just cut a little slot for the antenna. It comes with all bits of foam, so these you can cut out and put in here if you're not going to use that, just so that you haven't got a hole in your wing. And yeah, and also the fact that they go together quite nicely and easily. It just feels like really nice when it goes together. You've got the connectors in the wing for the electronics, so when you slide the wings on, that just connects the ESCs and motors and servos in the wing. So if you do want to take it apart for any reason, it's nice and easy to do. Just a couple of thumb screws inside here. And then there's this kind of, when you're putting the carbon fiber boom on, the design of this ring here that kind of twists to lock it in place doesn't allow for you to put this on at an angle, so it goes on perfectly straight. And then there is a couple of screws to hold the V-tail in. A little bit of a strange one on the design. If you haven't got the P&P kit and you're going to go for a kit, you'll see that the servos mount to the elevators directly, so it's a bit strange. So if your servo didn't really have the right mounting for this, then you might have a few issues. But this one is the P&P, so it came with all of the servos pre-installed with all the linkage already in place, motors, ESCs all wired up, ready to go. So it was easy to put together in a few seconds. So having said that, now the couple of things that I don't like about this. The first one is a very minor one. These wing protectors are just stickers, and I kind of wish they just didn't bother, because I'm not too sure they'd give you much protection anyway. And they just keep coming off. So I've actually taped them on the underside to try and keep them from just coming off the wing while it's sat there in storage. As I say, that's only a very minor thing. The main issue I found with this model is that the nose although they have come up with this design where this piece of foam uses magnets to just fit on the front there. This piece comes attached to the plane as standard, and that goes on there. This has only got a space for an FPV camera. Now, I should have added this on my, I guess, good points. It comes with multiple mounting options for different action cameras. So here you can see you've got 3 new faces to go on, 3 pieces of foam inserts that will go inside here. One is for the Session, one is for, I think that's for the Hawkeye 4K, and then you've got one for the RunCam Thumb Pro. So if you've got one of those cameras, really handy. If you haven't, they're not going to be of any use to you. For me, I wanted to install a digital VTX, and I don't think it matters if this is DJI or WalkSnail or whatever you're installing. I don't think this model is very well thought out for installing digital FPV. So if you want to put the digital VTX in the place where they suggest, as in ZOHD suggest, you put it here, you mount it to the top of this lid. But I really don't like that option, because then you've got cables trailing off the back of it into here, and every time you take it off, it's just going to be getting in the way. You've also got a cable coming off the front, which is going to be probably fixed into this nose. I don't know whether that's magnetized so that you could take this off and then easily move this out the way. But I just didn't like that setup for the digital VTX. Being on top is a bit annoying with it being in the way, and it's just not very good for the aerodynamics of the model. So I think the only other option is to go down a 3D printed route. So this 3D printed mount is quite a nice design. It wasn't one that I made. Somebody on RC Groups designed this. I'll put their name up on the screen so they get the credit for this. I did make some minor modifications, and I chose my own air cooling holes. I'll upload this onto Thingiverse for anyone that is interested. But this basically replaces this nose, and also there's a 3D printed part to replace this. And what I did was I pinched a couple of the magnets and put them onto the 3D printed part. And this is kind of held on by magnets, but I've also put some tape around just to keep it in place. So this now means that you've got the VTX up front with lots of cooling. And the reason for this is, if you use this nose and you put the camera in here, then there is no air cooling coming through here. You've got air coming in the side here. And the only space for a digital VTX, if you're not putting it on top of this, is just inside here in front of the battery, which means no air coming through the nose, and then no air coming in here. Air coming in there is just too far back. So I think that you'd find it would overheat there pretty quickly. But yeah, so that's just one of my biggest downsides, is that I don't think they thought out the mounting for a digital VTX very well. But as I said, there is a lot to like about this model. I will be running it on the recommended 4S2P, which is a 7,000 milliamp hour 4S, 18650. But then for some lighter flights, I'm also going to be running this. With this, I can get CG fairly easily. However, with this pushed as far back as it will go, right up until the carbon fiber spar, it was still a little bit nose heavy, so I did have to add some weights right up the tail there, just 10 grams of lead. So that's kind of my fault for having a heavier nose, and also then the VTX out really far. But yeah, I also partly blame ZOHD for kind of forcing me down that route. Okay, so real quick one before we go flying. Let's just show you my setup. So as I mentioned in the nose there, I've got the DJI Air unit running the WTF OS, standard antennas, and a polar camera. I really like those for low light and being able to fly into the night. In the electronics bay, we have a Matek F722 running iNav and a 220 GPS under this hatch here. And then I'm running a Crossfire Nano RX on the wing. Just turn that over. And then that is with a Prodrone dipole antenna there. The all-up weight with the lithium ion is 1,117 grams, but with the LiPo, it comes in with an all-up weight of just 970 grams. So let's take a look and see how it flies. Okay, I'm going to launch with the 4S2P, the recommended battery. Had to add 10 grams right to the tail, thanks to my 3D printed nose. See how the launch goes with no wind. Actually went really well. Here's that launch again from an onboard view. As you can see, it went pretty smoothly. There was no dip at all. I had my idle throttle to 60% and launch throttle 85%. You could probably lower that, but I went in high with it being quite a heavy plane for its size. With these settings, it was pulling around 26 to 30 amps for the launch, and it climbed out to around 100 meters pretty quickly. And it's worth pointing out that this was in zero wind, so this was kind of the toughest conditions for a launch. I have to say, in these nice calm conditions, it was quite fun to fly. It does feel really nice and stable and quite responsive, and it flies better than I thought it would considering the kind of wingspan to weight ratio. So that was a positive. However, I do feel like when you're flying it in a bit of wind, it does seem to get bashed around by the wind a bit more than I thought it would, and it does seem to lose a bit of its stability, especially in yaw. This clip here on a different day with a little bit of wind just shows that kind of instability I was talking about. On the subject of yaw, I actually found that the rudder works pretty well on this one when comparing it to something like the Swordfish, which has a lot shallower V-tail. It seemed a lot more effective on the Altus than it was on the Swordfish. In this clip here, I'm just going up to 100% throttle just to see how quick it will go, and I'm reaching around 117 kilometers per hour max. Obviously on lithium ion you get a bit less. On the LiPo I think it was about 120 to 125, so it's obviously not a very fast model, but that's not really what this one's all about. Despite its fairly heavy weight, it can also quite happily do loops and rolls. But again, I don't think that's what this is about. I wouldn't buy this as a proximity flyer. So for me, this plane is happiest, or at its best, when you're kind of cruising along gently in calm weather. So for people that like that kind of flying, this could be a decent model for you. It's quite a nice small one, it's quiet with its twin motors, and you can really load it up with quite a lot of battery for its size. And I could see it staying in the air for quite a long time if that's what you want to do. I'm just going to do a bit of cruising in two different directions, one way and back, so you can see the difference with the wind. So just take in the stats there on the bottom left. You've got the amps, and you've also got the milliamps per kilometre. With mixed flying styles and maybe more towards the higher throttle side of things, I was in the air for 24 minutes and used 2,900 milliamps. So I can see this has potential to be in the air for well over an hour. So overall, I think it's quite a nice little model. I have quite enjoyed flying it, but I think for my flying style, I do enjoy the Swordfish a bit more. I enjoy the kind of proximity flying and something a bit more agile. Whereas I think that this plane is just more suited to those that like the kind of long range cruising and being able to load their plane up with a bit more battery and just kind of go further, which I don't think is very easy to do with the Swordfish despite its larger size. So if you're trying to decide if this plane is right for you, I think that you've probably got the point by now. If you're someone that likes to cruise along long range, stay in the air for quite a long time, this could be a decent model. That's if you're happy to work around the setup for the digital install, if you are in fact going to be flying digital FPV. If you want something that's going to handle the wind better, something that is faster, something better for proximity flying, then I would say that there's going to be better planes out there for you. Hopefully you guys can see that this has been an honest review of this plane with the good and the bad. This is obviously just my opinion, but hopefully it helps you if you're trying to make a decision as to whether this is for you or not. If you're still unsure, there's plenty of other reviews out there, so please go and check them out. If you do want to buy one of these, please check out the links in my video description along with the full parts list. Thanks for watching.